This form, this innocuous little form, is a self-incriminating device, which implies very clearly that this is a dangerous procedure, although it's been unproven and it's only a theory, and there's no proof at all except statistical inference on a very small database, which is statistical malpractice. But the city takes these faulty statistics and establishes a claim that's definitely a link, and on that basis we need an informed consent, that you understand that it's a danger, and you incriminate yourself. As a Holocaust survivor, I consider this to be equivalent to putting a yellow star on the Jews and marking them off and making them a target and isolating them in Nazi Germany. So I don't think that our Moyles should accept the yellow star. We went through that once already with Nazi Germany, and we don't have to do that again. If the city would do a DNA test and definitely come up with a clear conclusion, that's a different story.
Have you asked the city why they're not doing it?
People have asked them, and they're stonewalling. They're not saying anything, because the truth of the matter is the city is happy with the situation just the way it is, because they've got the Moyles exactly where they want them. They're demonizing them, they're isolating them, and ultimately they will criminalize them and put them out of business entirely once the community loses its confidence in them after this widespread propaganda campaign. The ultimate goal of the city is to take the whole bris milah out of the shul and out of the home and put it in the hospital, the most dangerous place on earth with staph infections and MRSA, and give it to the surgeons where some nice money will be made using the operating room, and it'll be good for everybody all around.
Now, there's a NYU professor that's a leading expert.
Professor Berman of mathematics school at NYU decided to look into this and to see just what was the basis of the city's accusation, this blood libel. And he asked the city to give him the data on which they had based their analysis and conclusions. The city stonewalled him. They refused to give it to him. So, having no choice, he filed a Freedom of Information request. And after a while, he pried the information loose from the city based on his legal application. And looking at the data, he saw that the city had completely fudged the data, had cooked the books, as we say. They had used all kinds of numbers that were not justified, that included babies who had caught herpes from the mother at birth. Out of 30 babies, 27 were due to birth, and only 3 could even be suspected of having been a Moyle. And nevertheless, they included all 30. That's an order of magnitude of 3 to 30, 10 times as much, just to give one example. And then they analyzed everything incorrectly. So he said this was statistical malpractice. The true risk factor involved is a 1. Not 3 to 1, 1. Which means that with metziza b'peh or without metziza b'peh, the risk factor is exactly the same. Metziza b'peh does not add any additional risk according to those statistics. Besides which, the sample is so small, you can't even see a pattern or draw a pattern, a statistical pattern, because any particular case could be due to the siblings, could be the mother, could be a relative, could be a hospital worker. There's no pattern here.
So you say the city should take Bill Clinton's advice, do the arithmetic.
Do the arithmetic, or do a DNA test, which is the gold standard, which they refuse to do because they're afraid that the DNA test may refute their thesis, and this is just the beginning of what they want to do. They really are looking at the end game, which is when they demonize the Moyle, and they isolate him, and they criminalize him, then we go to the next step. We close down the entire business of having a Moyle in the shul or the home, and we take it to the hospital, which, as I said, is the most dangerous place on earth. like most people in the United States today, they worship science. If science says something, that's the holiest of holies. We don't look into that any further. We accept it as is. And that is what the city intends. Most people are busy. They don't have time to look into these things independently and to check out the propaganda that's being fed to them. And the city relies on that. Ultimately, we're going to have to engage in civil disobedience and just ignore the city directive, because that's the only way that we can fight this thing. If the Jews in Nazi Germany had not cooperated with the Judenrats and registered all the names on IBM punch cards and accepted the propaganda that they're not being taken to their destruction, but they're only going to work camps, Arbeit macht frei, perhaps more Jews could have been saved. But since we had Jewish quislings, traitors, who cooperated and collaborated with the Germans and actually reassured the Jews that there's no problem, that's why there was no Warsaw Ghetto uprisings in Klosenberg and in other places. And those Jewish leaders who accept uncritically what Mr. Bloomberg is telling the community, his reassurances that it means nothing, it's just a little form, those Jewish leaders who are blind enough and stupid enough to believe that that is all the city is after, they are our modern-day Judenrat, taking us down the road to the destruction of traditional bris milah in our time.